the king of saxophones. Yes, indeed he was.
I hear music, mighty fine music, the murmur of the morning breeze out there, the rattle of the milkman and the stare. Sure, that's music, mighty fine music, the singing of the sparrows in the sky, the perking of the coffee right nearby. There's my favorite melody, you my angel, for me bop, squiddy bop. I hear music, mighty fine music, and anytime I think my world is wrong, I get me out of bed to
I've got to sing this song. I hear the music. I hear the music.
Forget your troubles, come on, get happy.
I hear the music.
It's gonna be a great day.
Get out of bed, you sleepyhead, rise up and sing.
Sing so the whole world will know that you hear the music, mighty, mighty fine music. The murmur of the morning breeze out there,
The rattle of the milkman on the stairs.
Sure, that's music, mighty fine music. The singing of the sparrows in the sky, the perking of the coffee right by there. There's my favorite melody, you my angel,
The one that love phoning me. Now I hear the music,
mighty, mighty fine music. And anytime I think my world is wrong, I get me out of bed and sing this. I hear the music. I let a song go out of my heart.
Hello, my name is Phil Mattson. Welcome to Vocal Jazz, the Art and the Technique. In this presentation, we'll examine and demonstrate some of the essential elements of quality vocal jazz performance. We'll discuss quality literature and the rehearsal as sacred time. And we'll demonstrate the technical aspects of choral tone, harmonic and melodic balance, along with harmonic skill-building exercises and phrasing. Lastly, we'll discuss the dynamics of group performance. The primary concern of jazz has always been the music. The artistry of vocal jazz begins with a selection of quality literature. Quality literature can be defined as music which is written with both the capacity and the intent to be timeless. This type of literature is written to serve a purpose beyond consumption or entertainment. Jazz is a rich, joyous music that requires integrity, vitality, and a deep appreciation for music as an expression of the human spirit. Jazz is something to be treasured. It is one of the high-value musics. It is very important to feed our students literature that is good for both the body and the soul. There are many musicians, past and present, who have contributed to the art of jazz. We are grateful to the many jazz artists who have left us such a rich legacy. The art of jazz is alive and remains a vital part of today's music because of their creative contributions. The rehearsal is the key to creating quality vocal jazz musicianship, and the goal of the rehearsal is to learn to serve the music. Creating an appropriate rehearsal atmosphere depends on a proper approach toward the music, for without the attitude of respect and the spirit of servanthood, one won't get very far artistically. So, here we have this beautiful music to learn from, to serve, and to add our creative input to, and to do well. It is at this beginning stage of artistic development when the student learns to give him or herself to the understanding of music, technically, intellectually, and spiritually. As the level of commitment leads to personal involvement and a deeper appreciation for the gift of music, one can then get out of one's ego for a time and be free to internalize a sort of beauty consciousness. This experience is unique and liberating. During this psychological transformation, the individual becomes self-motivated, self-rewarded, and self-judging. Ideally, then, the quality of their work becomes central to them as opposed to focusing on some extrinsic reward. Through this artistic process, one develops integrity, not only in terms of the sound that is produced, but, even more importantly, in terms of the personality of the musician. Now let's examine some technical aspects of vocal jazz musicianship. Like all choral music, vocal jazz has its own unique tonal ideals or parameters in which the vocalist sings. This tonal ideal is usually non-vibrato, but not breathy in any way. It calls for physiological strength and good support. The sounds of vocal jazz can be characterized as either instrumental or vocal, or a combination of the two. An instrumental concept piece would be one in which the arranger is imitating or hearing woodwinds or brass, bass, or even drums now in the advent of vocal percussion. In an instrumental concept piece, such as Jubilee, we find a good deal of instrumental articulation, which requires a brighter and more focused sound.
There's excitement in the air, and everywhere there's music and love to share. Everyone is free, with everything we're pleased. It's great to feel the tease. We welcome in this eve the Jubilee. Here is more than you will need. Take a joyful feed on some.
The vocal concept piece is more fluid or linear in approach. This type of singing is much more familiar to us as choral musicians.
Walk down that lonesome road all by yourself. Don't turn your head back over your shoulder, and only stop to rest yourself when the silver moon is shining high above the trees. If I had stopped to listen once.
Overall, vocal tone is a reflection of the whole person. The emotions of joy and humor, compassion, and empathy are vital to the sounds produced in both instrumental and vocal concepts of vocal jazz. Jazz composers love harmony. They enjoy writing rich, juicy chords that require the singer to balance both the harmonic and melodic aspects of a piece. The tension between these two is heightened as one also considers the importance of knowing how one's own part relates to the whole. Musical wisdom, in fact, can be described as a deep understanding of the proper relationship of all musical elements. Melody, the horizontal element, consists of singing in time with particular goals in mind. Intermediate goals, such as the height of a phrase or perhaps one note that is a goal of a group of notes, must be attended to and balanced with the vertical or harmonic aspects of a piece. It is helpful to isolate the melody and get a deep feeling for the horizontal dynamic of a piece. For example, the Gershwin's Embraceable You.
Embrace me, my sweet embraceable you. Embrace me, you irreplaceable you.
It is also important to feel the inner heartbeat of the music. The 8th note or the 16th note, or sometimes even the quarter note, can be the internal subdivision. Another important aspect of melody is the notion of word stress. Text gives us the opportunity to choose words to emphasize or de-emphasize, which brings great artistry to vocal jazz. At the heart of artistic singing is the tension between melody, harmony, and text. Once again, we can use George Gershwin's Embraceable You to demonstrate phrase beginnings and endings and word stress.
Embrace me, my sweet embraceable you. Embrace me, you irreplaceable you. Just one look at you, just one look at you, my heart grew tipsy, tipsy in me. You and you alone, you and you alone, bring out the gypsy, gypsy in gypsy. I love the many charms.
Bring class to order.
So, we're going to talk about jazz harmony here and chords. Jazz harmony is essentially in 4 parts, usually 7th chords, and usually they're done with no doubling. We have the 1-type chord, which is really a triad to which we add a 6th or a 7th, a 2-type chord or minor 7th chord, a 5-type chord, which is a dominant 7th, and then the diminished 7th chord, although that diminished 7th chord is usually functioning as a dominant with a flat 9. So I'd like to practice some of these chords in isolation, and let's start with the diminished chord since that's a pretty easy chord to learn. It just consists of minor third intervals, and let's arpeggiate them. Just undo, I guess. And down a half step. Down a half. Good. Now let's do it in closed voicing. Basses on the root, tenors 3rd, altos 5th, sopranos 7th. Up a half. Up a half. Down. Back down. Good. Diminished chord is such a distinctive sound that it's relatively easy to learn. The one-type chord, a triad, either major or minor, with an added sixth or seventh. Let's do the sixth, because that's a fairly distinctive jazz kind of sound. So we'll arpeggiate it. Good. On this note. Good. Let's go back to the original key and do it in closed voicing. Undo, and we'll run up the inversions. First, second, and first and second would be good enough. Back down. Down a half step. Up, first inversion. Great. Not a difficult chord because there are no half steps intervals in that chord usually. The minor seventh chord, minor triad and a minor seventh. Let's arpeggiate it. And on this root. Great. Back to here, sing it in closed voicing. Up a half, back down. Great, and let's do it in first, second, and third inversions, and we'll start on this root. Root position, first, second, and third inversions. Great. So we've had the diminished seventh chord, the one-type chord, and the minor seventh chord, and now we come to the dominant seventh chord, the great chord of jazz and other music. In its basic form, it's not too difficult, although it has the tritone, the devil, lurking there. So let's arpeggiate it first of all. Good. And we'll sing it in root position in first and second and third inversion. Good. In closed voicing, it's and without any alterations, it's fairly easy to sing, but it's not that easy to sing because of that seventh. In open voicing, it's typically voiced with the basses singing the third or the seventh. In this case, let's have the basses sing the third, tenors the seventh, altos the root, sopranos the fifth. Down a half, down a half, back up a half. Great. What's really fun about dominant seventh chords is that the root and the fifth of the chord can be altered, each of them in three different ways. So there are actually four different ways of singing the root. As the root, raising it a half step, which makes it a flat nine, raising it a whole step, which makes it a ninth, and raising it a step and a half, which gives us that wonderful spinning wheel sharp nine chord. So altos, would you start on the root and move up a half step? That's such a great chord. So, four ways to do the root, and there are also four ways to do the fifth. As a fifth, as a flatted fifth, or sharp 11, as an augmented fifth, or as a 13th, raising the fifth a whole step. Why don't we start on the 13th and go down by half steps? And of course, both the root and the fifth can be altered at the same time in chords, which gives us some interesting chords. Let's have the altos do the 9th and the sopranos do the 13th, huh? And we'll go down by half step. Down. Back up. And of course, to make a 5-note chord, and you notice that we have no root then in this chord, we might use 2 of these alterations of the 5th at the same time. In other words, might use the 13th and the flatted 5th or sharp 11. So let's have the soprano split. Ellen, you do the 13th and you do the sharp 11 and 9th. Such a great chord. They call that polytonality sometimes because we have an F triad over E flat 7th. And as the chord gets more complex, of course, the intonation has to be better and better because there's a lot of tension in those chords. But if we can sing these chords isolated from the music, then I think we have a chance once the music is flowing in time, and it's really necessary to do that. Unlike traditional choral music, jazz is largely homophonic. One of the most challenging aspects of singing vocal jazz is in learning to connect the separate phrases into a seamless whole. Solving this problem begins in the mind. One must recognize that smaller phrases are a part of a larger whole, so the mind is able to make the connection through the breath. Once we are convinced intellectually, the actual physical connection is made by taking a breath with a real upward anticipation of the next phrase. The essence of the connection happens in the mind before the actual physical breath. Learning this technique is a valuable tool because much of the art of vocal jazz, indeed much of choral music, lies in the beginning and the end of each phrase. Another interesting element of vocal jazz performance occurs when more than one level of meaning is present in the text, such as in this next piece. Though written as a song about dancing with one's love, the text of Dancing in the Dark can, on a spiritual level, be seen as a poetic description of our human lives. This piece combines both instrumental and vocal aspects of vocal jazz.
Dancing in the dark till the tune ends. We're dancing in the dark, and it soon ends. We're waltzing in the wonder of why we're here.
Why are we here? Why are we here?
Time hurries by. We're here and gone. We're looking for the light of a new love to brighten up the night. Make it light. I have you, love, and we can face the music together, dancing in the dark. Dancing in the dark, dancing in the
the tune ends. We're dancing in the dark, dancing in the dark. And it soon ends. We're waltzing in the wonder of why we're here. Time hurries by, hurries by, hurries by. Time hurries by, we're here and gone. Looking for the light of the true love to brighten up the night. I need you, love, and we can face the music together, dancing in the dark, looking for the light. Da, 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 looking for light.
Robert Shaw once said, "Nothing important in music can be conducted." The goal ought to be, I think, for a conductor to teach everything he or she knows and understands about music, about chords, sounds, time, rhythms, melody, phrase, and vocal technique. The list is endless. All of this is taught with the goal of setting the singers free for the conductor to get out of the way of the performance. Throughout the rehearsal performance process, students learn to connect with each other visually by observing breath and body language. And because each performance is created anew, and the singers must deal with the dynamic of time, great sensitivity is required to perform as an ensemble. This connecting with other singers during a performance is a great experience.
Velvet, I can wish you for the color of your coat, and fortune smiling all along your way. But more I cannot wish you than to wish you find your love, your own true love, this day. Mansions I can wish you, 7 footmen all in red, and calling cards upon a silver tray. But more I cannot wish you than to wish you find your love, your own true love, this day. Standing there gazing at you, far of you, standing there.
Jazz is an American national treasure and our unique contribution to the world's music. Jazz began as vocal music, and this vocal side continues to be a vital part of it. There's everything and yet nothing mysterious about vocal jazz. It begins with good singing, singing which serves the music and a composition's unique demands. Vocal jazz requires the best human qualities: intelligence, acute listening, and sensitivity to time, to oneself, to others, and to life. There can be far-reaching effects for both students and teachers, as joy and humility inevitably grow from the heartfelt service of beautiful, creative music.
Was the king of saxophones. Yes, indeed he was. Talking about the guy who made it sound so good. Some people know him as the Bee, but Hawkins was his name. He sure could swing it, play pretty too. Sounds good to me, should sound good to you. I love to hear him playing body and soul, very pleasing to the ear. When I first heard it on the record, I just stopped right there. Sounded like a band of angels in the sky, and I had never ever heard a sweeter tone. In fact, I paid no attention to the saxophone till Coleman Hawkins came along and spoke to everyone. Sing better, sing better, listen, won't you hear me play for you? Sometimes it's hot, then again it's blue. My soul just seems to wander, pleasing each and every one. Is what I've long been craving for. The doors have not been always open, but I am trying to please you. Please don't try to stop me, hope you like it, folks. And then he started cooking. Every time he played some melodic melody, fast or slow, you could tell that it was Hawkins. No other one ever has quite captured his tone, just he alone has a sound that penetrates. It will sure go right through you, yes it will. And every chorus gives you just another thrill. Then along came Eddie Jefferson, he sang the melody like Hawkins played it. He sang it true, he sang it blue, made words for it too. All his fans in New York loved him, there's no one above him. Here in the USA, I've heard him say, oh, that he was the man. Oh, how he could sing, man did he swing, sang on the wing, did his own thing, yes he did. Throughout the country, music lovers are still wigging on Eddie, singing all around the world. He is known. Rhythm was his special joy, he swung it like a horn. He must have been born to be a singer, 'cause his lyrics were so sincere and true. Funny saddle blue, oh yeah. And we've got to remind you, many years it took him, singing every day to attain his first claim to fame. He was 20 years ahead of his time, and he knew it, but he kept right on to singing. He went all around the world, making rhythm, 'cause music sure was in him, and I know it was. Sang with Moody and Richie Cole, he could swing it just like Bird, but his forte was the words he wrote to music that he sang. So he sang and he sang and he sang, his words so clever, and I know they'll silence him never, 'cause he cut this masterpiece and now we're trying to sing it for you. Hope the Beat and Eddie both would still approve. There we go. We didn't mean to reminisce. You can surely bet that we won't forget, 'cause we hear them yet. Good.